without a mask. How exciting.
All right, Downtown Commission, we're streaming and we're live.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Brian Moffitt, and I would like to welcome you to the meeting of the Asheville Downtown Commission for March 11th, 2022. The Asheville Downtown Commission was created by the City Council for the sustainability and the continued development of downtown, a vital urban center of Western North Carolina's economic, cultural, and visitor activity. The Downtown Commission provides City Council with recommendations on downtown policies and initiatives. In addition, downtown commissioners currently fill 4 out of 9 seats of the city's Design Review Committee, which reviews development projects within the Central Business District, the River Arts District, and hotel projects outside of those areas. The Downtown Commission also has the opportunity to provide input on projects outside of the scope of design review. All committee members and staff are participating virtually, hopefully not for much longer. We appreciate your patience as we work through committee meetings a bit differently. We are streaming live on our Virtual Engagement Hub, which is accessible through the Virtual Engagement Hub link on the front page of the city website and also linked on the committee page. We have an option for the public to listen live by phone, and for anyone out there today joining us, welcome. At this time, I will go through and introduce all committee members who are participating virtually. Folks, you know what to do. Please make sure to mute your microphone if you're not speaking. When you have a question or would like to speak, unmute and then remute when you are done speaking. Committee members, as I call your name, please say a quick hello. And I was not ready with the agenda. There we are. Andrew Fletcher, Vice Chair.
Good morning, everyone.
Tal Frankfurt.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Kimberly Hunter.
It's great to be alive.
Stephen Lee Johnson.
Good morning.
Robin Raines.
Good morning.
Good morning. Megan Rogers is not able to attend today. Guillo Rodriguez.
Good morning.
Good morning. Ricardo Seo.
Good morning.
Did I do that right?
Yes.
Yes.
Beautifully.
Ruth Summers.
Present. Good morning.
Good morning. And our City Council Representative, Sage Turner.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. All right. To help our audience follow along, I will state each section of the agenda aloud, and we will do a vocal roll call for each vote. You folks know the drill. Raise your hand to speak or just start talking and I'll do my best. And we will go from there. So our first order of business is approval of the draft action minutes from our February 11th, 2022 meeting. Are there any comments or revisions for the draft action minutes? Wonderful. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Summers.
All right. Gio, you got the second?
I'll do the second.
Perfect. Thank you. Andrew Fletcher?
Aye.
Thank you. Tal Frankfurt?
Aye.
Kimberly?
Aye.
Stephen Lee?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Robin?
Aye.
Guillo?
Aye.
Ricardo?
Aye.
Ruth?
Aye.
And Sage?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you. All right. To the best of my knowledge, so our agenda this morning, we will be having for new business and presentations, we will have a presentation on the downtown park update, downtown parks updates. We will look at the Southside, South Slope vision plan, the draft plan, and some of the survey results. We will be looking at bike lanes on College and Patton. We have a minor update to rules of procedure for the design review commission. What is that? I'm on it. I don't know. And then we'll have our updates and reports. Do we have any public comment at this time for any items on the agenda?
We received no public comment in advance, and we don't have any callers in the queue at this time.
Very good. Okay. At this time, then, we will move to our first item of new business and presentations, and that is the downtown parks updates. And I think that is, a new guy, Mr. McGirt and Mr. Wall. All right, you're up.
Well, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I'm D. Tyrell McGirt. I go by D. Tyrell, but most people just call me D. So feel free just to refer to me as D. I'm the new Parks and Recreation Director here with the city of Asheville. It's been a couple months now since I've been on the job, and I would tell you that my first time coming to Asheville was probably less than 10 years ago. And obviously the downtown area was the area that my mom and I chose to visit. We just came for a day trip, did a Black History tour through historic parts of Asheville. But one of the things that struck me was Asheville feels a lot bigger than what it is. I think mainly because it has such a vibrant downtown. At any given moment when you're down there, it seems like there's traffic, there's retail, there are people that enjoy being in the downtown area because there are things to do. And that's because there's been an effort, a deliberate effort on behalf of the city and the work that you all are doing and some others to bring some attention to the downtown area. And that continues. Of course, what we do in Parks and Rec is bring people together. So anytime we can provide spaces and places where people can build community, it's always a bonus. So I'm going to shut up. I'm going to have Pete Wall, who is our focus area manager over the assets portion of Parks and Rec, kind of talk about some updates that are happening with our downtown park areas, Pack Square, Pritchard, Triangle, as well as some other park spaces and areas in downtown. Nice to meet everyone.
Dana, can you pull that up if you don't mind? I can have my screen up. Hey, everybody, I'm Peter Wall. So I'm the Parks Area Manager. That is a director adjacent position, and I assist D. Tyrell in the strategic planning and development and operations of our parks. So first, thank you all for inviting us to come speak and provide some information today. Thank you. I think it was at the request of Commissioner Johnson at a previous meeting where he had requested we come down and give you guys some information on some long and short-term efforts that we're doing in downtown parks. So I appreciate it. We'll go through this pretty quickly. I know you have a big agenda today. So if we can go to the next slide, we'll focus on Pack Square first, right outside my front door here. As most of y'all know, the park's over 10 years old. And so it's had its wear and tear over those 10 years. And so first of all, I just wanted to touch on sort of an outline of what our 5-year capital maintenance plan looks like. Focusing in the last few years, we were focusing on the fountains. We were having annual issues with each of the fountains every year. And so we did a fountain inventory and assessment with WP Law out of South Carolina. And the first phase of that was to renovate Splashville. So it was our primary active interactive fountain down there. And so that was done over the COVID years. And that is now completed and operational. Mid-block fountain was found to be beyond repair. And so that's part of our project this year. We're doing a planting and irrigation project throughout the park. So I'll circle back on that in a second. And then the Haas Haley saucer fountain, doing some upgrades to that in this next fiscal year. So this year we're working on planting and irrigation. Most of the plant material that was originally planted in the park has either died for whatever reason, trampled, or just not being irrigated, not being properly maintained. So we're doing a refresh on the planting in the irrigation. Landmark Landscapes is helping us with the planting, and K2 Irrigation is helping with the irrigation. So look for some improvements out there throughout this year. And those will be done seasonally as plants are available. Beyond that, we anticipate a lot of the stonework needs to be repointed throughout the park. And so we'll have a multi-year effort around that, as well as replacing some of the site furniture. Some of the trash cans and benches have seen better days. And so we'll do a multi-year phased replacement of those. And then we anticipate beyond that, there's going to be some major needs in the pavilion, in the restroom specifically. Our grounds maintenance contract over COVID was not renewed. So for 2 years, we were handling all of that maintenance in-house with limited staff. I am happy to report this year we're picking that back up, and Landmark Landscapes is going to be doing our annual landscape maintenance for that. Parks will continue to do daily trash and cleaning of the parks and all of our routine maintenance. So that's like pressure washing and things like that. Everybody knows OSEs have a big, or outdoor special events have a big impact on Pack Square Park. Those are still being run and managed by John Philman, although he is now in our newly created Community and Regional Entertainment Facilities group. And lastly, just a quick update, Steph is leading the effort there at Pack Plaza. And city and county staff team reviewed 3 proposals this week. The city and the team will be considering entering the negotiation with the top ranked firm next. And we'll continue, Steph and the team will continue with their engagement with Public Art and Cultural Commission on the temporary art program up there, as well as working with the Friends of Buncombe County Special Collections on the historical aspects of that project. So I just wanted to mention that real quick. Okay, and then moving on to Pritchard Park. So Pritchard Park, everyone on this commission is well aware of some of the challenges we've had in Pritchard Park over the last couple of years, and ongoing for those of you that have been here for quite some time. So staffing challenges were a big thing in-house. We had very limited temp seasonal response to our open positions last summer. And so we had limited staffing availability to maintain the park. Same with contractor availability. We tried to reach out to over eight contractors to ask them to provide some landscape maintenance coverage for us, and we couldn't find anybody interested in helping with that. And then, of course, just the heavy use of the park, requiring a lot more staffing resources to keep it clean and keep it picked up and keep it orderly. So some of the increased in-house efforts that we've been working on to address some of that, focusing efforts around staffing being available in the parks, I will say, not just Pritchard Park, but in the parks from 6 to 10. Those are our operating hours. And focusing on increased trash collection. So instead of just 1 time a day, which is what we were doing, we've elevated that to about 4 times a day. And trying to pressure wash multiple times a month instead of just the 1 time a month that we were doing. Somebody's got their hand raised.
Yes, hey Pete. Can you talk a little bit more about the challenges and kind of like the reason? Like, why is no one responding? Why are there staff challenges for those that are not familiar?
Yeah, so our staffing challenges are directly related to just folks being interested in working for Parks and Rec and applying for those temp seasonal positions. As you're probably well aware, there was national staffing shortages across the country, and that impacted us just the same. And so finding somebody that wants to do our work for temp seasonal wages has just been really challenging for us. And that's primarily our frontline staff that do trash collection and park cleaning and upkeep on that side. A few of the other things that we're continuing to work on, trying to stay ahead of the weeds with a strong mulching program. And then also a little bit more heavy pruning to get good sight lines in and out of the parks. So we've been working on that, and you should have noticed some of those changes over the last 3 to 6 months. One of the other requests that came was around a code of conduct signage. So visibly showing something in the park that illustrates what is and isn't allowed within city parks spaces. And so you'll see that blue sign down there on the right is posted throughout the park. And it's a lengthy list of things, but it allows our enforcement division to, point to something and expressly say what is and isn't allowed in the city park. So a lot of those conduct issues that we've had in city parks can be addressed that way. And that's both done by our park warden. We have 1 position, that's Keith Whittington. He's in the park 5 days a week, mostly in the evening hours. And then enforcement is still handled through Asheville Police Department. So some of our planned maintenance efforts, again, we know we've got some brickwork issues down there that have been prolonged for a long time. We're having contractor. It's a small project, but we don't have in-house staff trained up in masonry, and so we're having a hard time finding somebody who wants to do a small project like that. With the development construction industry the way it is in Asheville, most folks are looking for the bigger projects. So, but we do have outreach and quotes on working on some of that, as well as site furniture replacement. So there's some images there. You can see the condition of the benches right now. Working on replacing those and just getting all new site furnishings in there when we can get those ordered. Supply chain issues are impacting us there as well. So those companies are between 4 and 6 months out on site furniture deliveries. Next slide. So Triangle Park, we recently finished a renovation there. If you haven't been down to that park recently, go by and check it out. It looks great. We gave it a refresh of the mulch area and all new site furniture. There was recently some historical markers located there that you all may be aware of. And we did add irrigation to the turf areas to try to help give it more resiliency, because this is a heavily used park pretty much year round, but especially in the summertime. So, and then I just wanted to touch on a few other downtown areas that aren't historically thought of as park spaces, but we do help maintain and keep those up. So Senior Opportunity Center over on Grove Street, it's a heavily used facility, both inside and out. Gracie's Garden, there at the corner of Lexington. City Hall parking lot, that's behind this building that I'm in today. The Marjorie Street parking lot. Rankin Center, or Rankin Street parking deck. There's two landscape areas on the ends of those. The Wall Street steps, you guys may be familiar with that area. And then the Rankin employee parking lot behind Harris Cherokee Center. We're also maintaining that. So staffing challenges, as I said, continue to be, we're trying to look for innovative and creative ways to attract folks to come and work with us. And then we do have a focus on trying to look at innovative ways for park security and safety. And one of those right now is a part-time seasonal position for folks with law enforcement or security background, and seeing if we can attract some folks into those positions. That's posted now on the city's website. And then also an enhancement request this year for possible more full-time positions to support frontline efforts, both in cleaning and park security. So things that can help, I think that was one of the other things that came out of the request. Volunteers, we can always create opportunities for folks to physically help in the parks, litter cleanup, weeding, mulching, graffiti removal. Always happy to have an extra set of hands. It doesn't have to be for a big time commitment, but reach out to us if you're interested in trying to help. And then advocating for parks, sharing information about our staffing challenges, the number of facilities that we're maintaining with the staffing that we have, supporting the initiatives that we have going on in Parks and Rec, and then prioritizing parks. Help us prioritize parks in downtown. They're, as D. Tyrell mentioned, it's a huge piece of what makes our downtown great. Of course, I'm partial to that because I'm a parks guy. But thanks for your time, and then open it up to any questions.
Thank you. Ruth, go ahead, and then Stephen Lee.
Yeah, thank you for the update. You mentioned something about upgrades to the restrooms in Pack Square Park. Does that mean the city is going to reopen those?
Well, they should be open now. So they get vandalized quite frequently, and we're trying to be as responsive as we can. But as far as I know, I haven't talked to my operations manager today, but they should be open at the hours posted on the building. And so they're slightly different seasonally because of, again, staffing availability, plus it gets dark earlier, but they should be open as far as I know.
Go ahead, Stephen Lee.
Thank you. First, Dee, we appreciate you being here today, and all of us are grateful that you've joined the team. We know that you've got a huge department to look after, and it probably as wide of an array of challenges as any other department head in the city of Asheville. So we appreciate you being here, and it's great to get to meet you. And Pete, we also appreciate you and your experience and your role there in the Parks Department now. y'all were really lucky to have a guy like Pete with his experience in landscape architecture kind of leading this effort. I wanted to bring up one thing specifically, and I thought that this would be with the Downtown Commission an appropriate spot to kind of mention it, because everybody that's part of this commission has been involved with downtown a long time. I've been here for over 20 years, and just as a reminder, Ruth, I think you're the only one that knows a lot of this history behind, and I'm going to speak specifically about Pack Square Park, not Vance Monument, but let's go down to Reuter Terrace and let's go down to McGuire Green. The whole effort, as a reminder for everybody who wasn't aware of this, the whole effort that got all this started was a group of basically volunteers that fundraised the majority of the money, over $20 million, to build us a world-class park. And Gio, I'm glad you're here too, because you've got great urban parks experience, so you're going to understand this. And again, speaking specifically about McGuire Green and the Reuter Terrace, I think that my concerns today are that civic spaces of this size in any major city cannot reach their fullest potential when it is just city staff, park staff doing their very best to maintain a park along with their other entire portfolio. You guys have challenges in other parks outside of downtown. But every successful major urban park has one thing in common, and that is they have basically a group, a friends group, a friends of, Pack Square Park, whatever, a friends group that assists the Parks Department with developing preventative, proactive maintenance schedules, helps review major challenges that staff are dealing with, such as like events, and then helping for the long term, trying to lay out with the public's best interests and their professional advice, methods for making sure that this incredible park for the next 10 or 15 years does nothing but improve and get better. It's reaching a point now where proactive, preventative maintenance and the measures, a lot of which y'all are already undertaking, are going to be super critical. Gio and Pete, you both know what I'm talking about, especially with masonry and mortar. The other concern is, the big issue with our McGuire Green is that after the first event in spring, the entire new sodded area is destroyed for the rest of the season. And that's a great example of how a volunteer group that works directly with staff can help over the long and short term do things like review options, fundraise. Fundraise is a big thing, and help prioritize ways to help that space evolve to be something that it is now. So I won't go any further, but I would like to reach out, Pete and Dee, I'd like to reach out and suggest that this is a conversation I think that would be really good to have. And I've been a part of different models in different cities when this has worked really, really well, with the goal of basically helping staff gain the sense of the Downtown Commission and then volunteers, but as well fundraise. This park is expensive to maintain, and there are huge issues that are going to be brought up in the next 5-10 years. And I think it's an important thing to consider. So I just want to put that out, and I'd be more than glad to come and talk to you about this specifically, and maybe what a potential model might be for this group, something y'all might want to consider. Thank you.
And I would love to be able to contribute my knowledge and expertise. So if you want to bring someone together, and I would love to work with you, Stephen Lee, and it's something that it's dear to my heart, and I have a lot of experience with it, and I really would love to contribute.
Appreciate the offer, and we'd be happy to schedule that with y'all for sure. Thanks for bringing that to light, Stephen Lee.
Kimberly, go ahead.
Stephen Lee, I really appreciate what you said, and I would like to participate in whatever that might look like. That's great. Thank you.
Very good. Any other comments or questions regarding our parks updates? Really appreciate that. Go ahead, Andrew. And then I see you, Ruth.
Yeah, I'm wondering, you guys, like, I know that every department has had staffing issues. Do you guys have a number on your staffing challenge? It's a percentage of vacancies or?
No, I mean, broad numbers, we had about 50% of our temp seasonals. We had 50% vacancy in our temp seasonal slots last year. The exact head count I don't have off the top of my head, but so it was, you know, and then on the top of that, we were also taking on in-house mowing. So every staff member basically was out from this time of year until October mowing every park that we had and just starting over. So, but yeah, about 50% decline in interest in our temp seasonal positions last year. This year, it remains to be seen, although we're not seeing both on the recreation side and the park side, we're having limited interest in our positions right now.
The other question I have for you guys is, I know that if there's an opportunity to partner with a service provider that's doing outreach with the homeless, folks like that, or do you currently have a program or know of other programs that you could possibly model over where you create some of these employment opportunities for some of these folks who are also getting other services from organizations who are already partnered with other parts of the city?
We don't have that in the Parks Department, but it's something that we could look into for sure.
Go ahead, Ruth.
Yeah, I just wanted, Stephen Lee, I love your suggestion, but I think when you talk about a funding group coming together, there used to be a large group of people who actually raised the money for Peck Square Park. And then there was a group of downtown residents that used to clean Pritchard Park all the time. So I do know that there's some hurt feelings in this town. So I think that hopefully you know that history. If you don't, I'd be more than happy to meet with you and talk to you about that, because I think whenever you put a citizens group together and a support group that's going to raise money, you need to tread lightly. There are some really hurt feelings.
Thank you. Go ahead, Stephen Lee.
And Ruth, I appreciate you bringing that up. I wasn't going to kind of dive into that too seriously, but I think you and I may be the only ones that are aware of it. When I first moved to Asheville, I was actively involved in a lot of those meetings and discussions, and it was a very difficult time. And I agree, and it's a very sensitive part that needs to be addressed in order to make sure some type of group is successful in the future. And I really appreciate you bringing that up. And I do know that that group of folks did some amazing things. And some of their fundraising efforts still exist today in accounts that are not in the city of Asheville, that are in holding for safety, I think. But it's a delicate subject. And Ruth, I think your additional insight into this would be very helpful, and maybe some initial discussions on how this might work, and including efforts with like downtown area residents that have already done legwork with this type of thing. But some entity, I think, can be developed in a way that provides assistance to staff. And this is not meant to be a burden to staff at all, Pete and Dee. This is meant to be a group of concerned and willing to volunteer citizens that can work together to help. I mean, y'all are doing your part, and I think there's a group of people that want to do their part as well and help making it successful. So thank you for bringing that up, Ruth.
Good discussion. Any final closing comments, D or Pete?
I just close by saying thank you for the welcome. I would certainly get with Dana to get contact information, and Pete and I will work on bringing Stevens Lee,
Kimberly,
Ruth
Gio. Yeah. Stephen Lee, Gio, Kimberly, and Ruth
together
are the ones that you need to talk to.
So that would be our follow-up action. Again,
Perfect.
Nice meeting everyone, and thank you for some time today.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Perfect. All right. Our next item of business is Southside South Slope Vision Plan Review with Sasha, I think.
Thank you. I will share my screen. Oh, wait, let's see. Sorry, hold on. So once I go into this full screen mode, I can't see your faces. I'll just say that because I've got notes on another screen. So please, Dana or Brian, let me know if I need to stop.
Will do.
So thank you. So yes, so here we're back. We're here with the South Slope, a Southside neighborhood vision plan. And this plan has been a long time coming. I know it's been much longer than anybody anticipated. And we did most of our public input before the pandemic started. I just to start out, this area, we call this our study area. Many people think of the South Slope as a much smaller area, just around Banks and Buxton, Cox Avenue area. We expanded that a little bit to kind of incorporate surrounding commercial areas. And this area is really at a confluence of Asheville. And just want to make sure I note the time. We've got neighborhoods surrounding on the east, west, and south side, the hospital district, the historic core. And so to me, it's almost like a confluence of where a bunch of different things come together. And this area, we definitely acknowledge this area has been called Southside for a long time by many people. And there's also a Southside community a residential community that is kind of forming a new organization. I believe they're called Southside United, and they are starting a planning process as well. And we've been it's been a while since we've been in contact with them, but we did discuss plan boundaries with those folks several years ago, and I was even fully open to say, if your boundaries overlap with this one, that is fine. I think their boundaries don't overlap with this plan, but we've definitely tried to take into consideration all of the history of this area. And I'm not going to go into that history in this presentation, but in the plan, it's there. Obviously, this area a large chunk of this study area was redlined. And really, since Cox Avenue, as most of you probably know, was really more of a drainage ditch until the 20s, when Battery Hill was torn down and filled in to form Cox Avenue. It's different than many areas of our city that, this was much more of a rural, almost farmland area for many decades. So what else? So because it's this confluence and in the middle of all these neighborhoods, we're really trying to kind of formulate strategies that can make it a little bit more cohesive and also tie in and benefit the surrounding neighborhoods, right? And I know that in our community, we're very concerned and sensitive to that. We are a tourist town. We have been for many, over 100 years. And at the same time, people who live here really need to see the benefits of our economy and often don't see the benefits. So kind of taking the reality, but also how do we make it better for everyone? And how do we, I think we've heard a lot from the community already, even just in the last 2 weeks, that public comment has been open, that people are concerned about this area just being for tourists, which I think we also heard at the beginning of this process. So just moving on, this is our study area boundary. We did include both Aston Park and McCormick Field. This was partly based on this innovation district idea we had a number of years ago. We have special taxing authority in this area, and we could issue local government bonds at a better rate in this area, is partly why this boundary is there. And we tried to make sure we weren't encroaching on residential areas. So this is really about mixed use, commercial, and residential development. So the way it's organized, we have 5 themes and 10 key initiatives. You've probably heard this some time before: quality built environment, unique and inclusive sense of place, a strong local economy, which does include housing, multimodal transportation, and strategic infrastructure and natural environment. And so I have this presentation. I'm noting my time here. I don't want to just talk at you for too long. I will try to do a quick overview. And it's all on our public input site. You can look at sections of the plan, or you can download the entire thing if you want as well. So for quality built environment, I'm going to go here. Part of our process was that we looked at with the community and developed some character areas. Not every piece of this area, is the same. So here you'll see the green is for parks. The light yellow is for areas that abut or very right next to neighborhoods. So those are a little bit more sensitive. We heard a lot from, South French Broad, Southside, Oakhurst neighborhoods about their concerns about uses on these areas and also height. Blue is more things we see that either are currently more residential or could be more residential, and red being just straight up mixed use, more downtown-like. And then purple, this Banks and Buxton area, we heard from folks that they felt like this should be a little bit smaller scale than the rest of the South, the South Slope area here, and wanted a little bit more sensitive development. There's kind of more low warehouse buildings in that area that have been redeveloped. So just going back to the goals here, we're trying to kind of reinforce, an urban form, encourage uses that support local residents, improve the quality of the public realm, and celebrate, some of the existing historic character, the uniqueness. We also recognize in this plan, Ashland, going back a little bit into history here, Ashland and Southside, McDowell, that was where urban renewal with the East Riverside project really affected this area. So even though the East Riverside area was pretty large and even included part of Cox Avenue buildings, from my understanding, did not get touched or taken or anything like that. But Ashland, where there was residential, there were boarding houses or apartment buildings and single family homes, that all got taken and redeveloped for this bigger, new, straighter street. And so this area, as you go down Ashland, is very suburban, right? So it's like medical offices, financial offices, things like that. And it's a much more suburban form than you would expect right next to your downtown. So I think our goal is to how can we make it more urban at the same time being sensitive to the neighborhood, and also have uses that are appropriate there. The next big theme is unique and inclusive place. Definitely heard a lot about people want to support BIPOC businesses in this area and want to see them created here. I included comments here in the plan where we heard people talk about like how when they see new development, they get the signal that they're not welcome and not included in this area. And so This diagram is really just to show that, there's more than one kind of inclusion, social, economic, political. It's really, being full participants in an area. And it's pretty disjointed in some ways, right, in this area. We've got Maple Crest, which was Lee Walker Heights, kind of in this area as well. And they're kind of cut off a little bit from what's going on in this larger area. Strong local economy. I think you all are well versed in what this is about, supporting local businesses, supporting development of new and existing BIPOC-owned businesses, infrastructure to help those businesses, and then also housing. So housing also always supports a healthy business district, right? So when the tourists go away or it's like a really cold month, there's still people. It doesn't just die. We need residents in our areas. Multimodal transportation. Again, you all are very familiar with all this, but making it safe and accessible for all types of modes of transportation. Because of the way that this area has developed over time, we've got a lot of driveway cuts, and which makes it harder for pedestrians and bicyclists. Feels less safe, and that's mostly Cox and Ashland. That's going on a lot. We do have some of an alley network that we want to make sure we preserve and really use for businesses and for pedestrians. They can be great ways to get through an area, through urban renewal. And really, I shouldn't even say that, not just urban renewal, but even before that, because of the topography, we have these giant long blocks on Ashland and Cox. So from Hilliard, you have to go all the way down basically to Southside if you wanted to get over to McDowell. There's not a through street. I think there might have been one at one point, but because of it being a ravine and being filled in, there really wasn't cross streets there are the way the rest of our historic downtown. And then the last theme is strategic infrastructure and natural environment. So you may know that this area really drains the entire downtown area and maybe even beyond. So if I showed you, and we have one in our appendices, we have a map that shows how all the water drains through this area. And so really it's a great opportunity to slow that water flow, increase the quality. And here's an example from the apartments behind the A-loft, the green roof on top of that, the apartments there. And we even have the study that shows how effective this has been. So it's not just pretty, but it really does a great thing and helps us. It really helps you from an economic point of view, not spend as much money on stormwater infrastructure if you're treating that water on the way. Also, energy efficiency, obviously renewable energy, climate is a major piece of where we're, major concern for all of us as we move forward. And then we have 10 key initiatives. So what we did is we took basically those 5 themes and pulled 2 ideas for each of those themes. Some of these are super concrete, super clear, and it's just like, yes, go do that if it gets approved. So a few of these things we're actually already doing, frankly, and we're just trying to build on what we're already doing and pulling it together. And then there's a few of these are a little more aspirational and abstract, but still really important that we're always thinking about as we move forward. So the first one, updating design guidelines and zoning. The idea here being these areas on the side next to the neighborhoods should probably be rezoned, but in a way that, we've talked to these folks about rezoning Ashland to CBD, and there was firm resistance. So I think it's more of choosing a zoning district that's appropriate and that works for both commercial and residents. And there's an idea here about extending the CBD to the south. Maple Crest here is done and built. The city will be pursuing the development of 319 Biltmore here below that. And really what we have, the biggest change area would be this area of McDowell Street moving south. Those are much more smaller suburban buildings, and what, it's an opportunity, let's put it that way. Creating a gateway at Biltmore and Southside. So this is one of those aspirational ideas that may never happen. And the city owns here on the left, if you can see, this is our gas station, our fuel station, and we actually also own a piece of land here that comes out to Biltmore. Sorry. The Buncombe County owns this area on the left, this building, and I think they're going to change some uses there. The new townhomes are here, of course, and then the city obviously owns the parking areas here. We heard a lot from the Oakhurst neighborhood about this area and concerns. Parking pressures, we know at East End Valley and Oakhurst are happening. So the idea here is, what if we could, and also I should say, also people often feel like they, if you're going to a tourist game or even just getting up to the park, this feels like a major hurdle to get across. DOT did improve this intersection here at Southside some, so it's better. But what if we made it a little bit more knit together with the rest of downtown? So this is kind of a mixed use concept, perhaps, and it's very pie in the sky. And this is not funded. And I've even gotten at least one comment so far saying this should just come out of the plan. So if you all have any thoughts of that, I would love to hear it. But the idea being here that if you had some parking garages that could help pull some of that parking pressure off the neighborhoods, you could have some public space, nice public space, affordable housing, or an additional housing here, maybe some business opportunities for local residents. Again, very idealistic and a very planning type of idea, but there it is. Honoring African American history. Some of this work is already happening. This is a school actually down here on the lower right. It was called the Bailey Street School, and it was on Ashland Avenue. And I believe it's on the site of where the Ironwood, the Cox Ashland, the big giant Cox Ashland project is going. It was torn down, I think, in 1952 or so. It started out as a white school and then became an African American school for a few years, maybe a decade or two. And this is Oates Park, which is really not in our study area, but it's just adjacent. It's in a triangle down there at Southside and I want to say Choctaw. And it was where the the Negro League, as it was called, played baseball. And it was a really big deal and a great thing for the community. So there are marker, projects going on, but there's still always plenty to do on this. Weaving art throughout the district. The Downtown Association and the South Slope Neighborhood Association worked together on a mural project. This key initiative also recommends, how do we get art to be built into development? And we kind of use this example from the 55 South Market Apartments. Cleasta Cotton, won the contract to put a piece of art on that building. It was a good example of a developer using a process to get a local artist and really honoring the history of an area. Developing city-owned land for affordable housing and job creation. So like I said, this on the bottom right here, this is 319 Biltmore, just below Lee Walker Heights. We are now working on a development agreement with a developer for this process, for this piece of land, excuse me. It will be a mixed income community, and we're hoping that there will also be some ancillary commercial space, possibly. We're not sure what exactly that'll look like, but we're hoping to, this summer to be moving forward with that. Another piece of that was South Charlotte Street. And what we've discovered in the last year is that really to move our facilities off of South Charlotte Street, and obviously maybe most of you know that a lot of this land was from urban renewal. There were people who lived, they remember their homes being in the public works parking lot. And this is really actually south of Beaumont Street. So some of this may not have been, residential, I don't think, but still, I think in our community's mind, this is urban renewal area. It would cost us somewhere between $60 and $100 million for us to move our facilities off this property and to pursue this vision. So that is our major stumbling block. It doesn't mean that we couldn't maybe do a piece of it at some point in the future. And then lastly, the one piece that is firmly in our study area is this piece on Ashland Avenue. And this was an urban renewal site. And really the Reparations Commission, which is just getting going now, we're hoping that will help give us some guiding vision for how this property could be used. We've heard from several community groups that would like to put affordable housing here, that in African-American development groups that would like to put housing here and have that land returned to the community. We also need to do some additional environmental study on this piece of property. Enact an equitable development to benefit the larger community. So this is really one of those more, I won't say aspirational, but a little bit more abstract concepts that we want to start embedding in how we do our work. We are somewhat limited in North Carolina legally, but the city, I think, really wants to see how can we use either our land, our funding, bidding opportunities, all those things to really support the community, BIPOC businesses, and previously really disadvantaged and discriminated against folks, to get everybody should have a seat at the table and a piece of the pie, right? And displacement, obviously, around this area, within and around this area, is a huge concern. Banks and Buxton as shared streets. I won't spend a lot of time on this. Shared street is something like Wall Street. This is not funded. It could be a part of some Green Street initiatives. It could help local businesses. We've done pieces of this really with the Asheville Share Space initiative, if you will. But funding is definitely a stumbling block, but it could potentially happen. So those are just some additional images. Southside Greenway connector. This is something that is actually funded and will happen. So it's connecting the Greenway at Bowcatcher and then the Nasty Branch Greenway. The signage for the Nasty Branch Greenway is starting to go through community input and public process. So this is a coming thing. And this is really mostly an on-road connector. Making Cox Avenue a green Main Street. This is also actually happening, and it's funded to a certain degree. We have money for design, and the city put out our RFP. This is one of those main conductors of stormwater through our downtown. And the idea here is, can we make the sidewalks wider, provide places for gathering space, buskers, make space for bicyclists, and at the same time, can we treat some of that stormwater coming through this area? And obviously, when you do that, you can have these cool planters and bioswales, all that, some of the BMPs, best management practices, and really have some trees. One of the biggest things we're missing in this area is street trees. We don't have a lot of them. And so the area feels a little bit desolate because there's not a ton of trees. And that's just another image for that. And then lastly, incentives for sustainability. As you know, we're somewhat limited in what we can require. There are incentives in other places and states and cities that I've looked at that really do a great job for both residential and commercial development. And I think the Sustainability Office is very aware of those, and we're hoping that some of those can become available here in North Carolina. There are things like green banks that do financing for this kind of infrastructure, but I think the more that we can support it as a city, the more we can see happen. And that's the last of those initiatives. Gosh, I've been talking a long time and I apologize. So lastly, we have this public input page. You can click on these different tabs and there's questions for each of them. And I can show that to you in a second. Just next steps, we've got public comment open for a little bit over 2 weeks. We're doing an in-person open house on March 22nd. I should have said 4 to 6 p.m. And we'll be doing edits to the plan after we get comments. And we hope to come back to you all in a couple of months with a final draft for recommendation to council. And so there, I will stop. And I apologize for talking so long.
Sasha,
Great.
you are a wealth of information. Thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Sure. I just real quick, I will say on this plan website, like you can click on these different tabs. And so I've got some, what do you think about these goals? Rank the goals of each area. We've got some places like where, like, what do you think about this height map? What do you think about this? We try to find the right length because I started just making all these questions and people are like, that's too much. Nobody's gonna spend that much time. So, but there's open comment and you can comment on anything really in the plan.
So the first thing I'd say is that please, everyone on this commission should really read the plan, and not only read the plan, but please fill out the. She's got, or the city has a great setup here where you can rank priorities, and then comment on them and elaborate. And we need really good comment and really good thought going into this. We're still in the information collection stage of the process, in as many voices as possible. So first thing I'd say is everyone needs to, if you haven't already, and even if you have, you can still go back and comment again. I've done it. It's okay. They won't yell at you. Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, Sasha, that was really great. I really appreciate this you bringing this to us today. I wonder, I know that when it comes to funding and things like this, there's a bunch of TPDF money from the Tourism Development Authority that's been kind of building up and sitting there. I know we've had some problems in the past about whether they can pay for design work and things like that, before things that just to get to the shovel ready point. How does that fit into that sort of history? Is this a step forward for possibly getting some of these initiatives, like especially thinking walkable streets stuff? I think that's probably the most likely overlap between what this plan is and what the TDA might like to do, as long as they still exist.
I will actually, I don't know if staff feels like if she's listening or can answer that question.
I'm listening, but
because I'm not as involved, honestly, in the TPDF piece of it. I think.
Yeah. So I'll say that. So the TPDF. I mean, I'm probably not going to say anything that folks don't know, and Dana could say this too. But the TPDF process is rolling for this year. The TPDF process, meaning that the application process is going to be open. The city is working on compiling the requests that we have, and we're using a pretty, what I would say is a narrow criteria, very considerate of what our fiscal needs are and projects that we have in the hopper. And Cox Avenue, as far as South Slope, is one of those projects that we are considering requesting TPDF monies for. And that entire process, if folks don't know, is going to wrap up in October. But it is a council review process. So like any other grant, we have to go to council. So what you'll see is a request that goes to probably the PED committee, and then PED will recommend to council whether or not to consider that request for funds. And as far as I know, we are, every once in a while people say, oh yes, the legislature is going to look at this session or that session, but nothing has changed. And all of the money, they do not know how much money yet, or maybe it's a little bit up in the air that they're going to use. I think they're pulling some of that built up money, Andrew, that you were talking about back. But it will be substantial and potential investment for their community, all of Buncombe County. I don't know if I didn't answer your question, but that's my spiel on TPDF.
Well, so I guess my question, which I think is a little, I'll tighten it up. Is this a step forward to getting us closer to having a good application for that money?
Yes,
Thank you.
it's great. It's really lovely to have all this work done. Thank you, community, for all of the input so we can hand this over.
You know, I was looking at some of the photos in it, and yeah, we've obviously been working on this for a while, because just so I could tell, I could date some of the photos where
Yes.
no masks and staff members that are no longer with the city and
Yes.
things like that. So that's really neat. Also, I'll point out that the appendix link in the back of it, the appendix A, that has other maps, goes to a restricted access Google page. So if you guys could make that.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I thought I fixed all those. I will check. Thank you.
And there's a typo on page 38. Sorry, I used to work for a newspaper. I can't turn it off.
Yeah, no, it's good. No, all good.
But yeah, that is really great and really exciting. And you know, I've got you know, friends that I work with that live in that area, so it's definitely not just for tourists. And it's you know, really, it'd be really exciting to see that. I'd also really encourage us to, you know, with the proper sensitivity, look at those rezonings as soon as possible, because otherwise, I mean, with the growth patterns we're seeing out there, we're going to get some, you know, less than optimal stuff if we don't get the right zoning on those shoulder areas right there. And I know that those are sensitive conversations with the neighborhoods. I don't want to get ahead of those, but I really think we should start having them now. Otherwise, we're gonna lose our chance to sculpt and make sure that this area integrates properly with downtown as it should.
Right. And I think we've gotten that comment from those neighborhood folks, and I know that they're anxious for that. So it is pretty high on the list.
If you're putting a working group together to look at those transition zones, I've been interested in that for a long time. I think you were on that trip when Alan Glines took us around and we talked about all this, and I've been thinking about it ever since, honestly. Yeah, I'll help if you need it.
Thank you.
The other thing that I'm seeing it that I was sort of missing is I think there's problems with east-west axes in this entire study area. It's just hard to get east to the west. And the one opportunity that I see that we kind of may have missed in this is Hilliard Avenue pedestrian. Maybe I just missed it. But Hilliard Avenue is the best east-west corridor that we have in the area. It's also sort of the border. I know it's like sort of the top edge of it, but still the only one east-west that goes all the way across this entire study area. And I feel like we may have missed an opportunity in here to look at to like what you've done with Cox Avenue, to an approach for that with Hilliard Avenue. But there may be there's some challenges I'm not aware of there.
It's very challenging. I mean, I think your comments, I totally agree. I mean, I think we do have a paragraph about Hilliard, and we looked at it, and we're just very hemmed in. We would have to start acquiring property and there's retaining walls, and it is a challenging thing, but it's definitely on our radar. And I think, just so folks know, in this slowness in the multimodal section, there is a priority list, top 10, like kind of, and I think Hilliard is here on this list. So
it was.
We are limited, but we know it's got problems for sure.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kimberly.
Yeah, Sasha, I echo with everybody else. This is such a fantastic presentation and information. To Andrew's point, I was involved maybe like 3 or 4, it's a while ago, years ago, specifically on that Hilliard piece with regard to it being like a historically secured African-American trail. So keep that in mind, because it was the place for decades that African Americans who were in the Southside and East End and all that used to travel back and forth to the schools, to the block, to all of that, the different places. So that is a big part of, and I know there's other groups still working on that particular component for Hilliard.
That's great to know. Thank you. Well, definitely, if you think of something and you always feel free to shoot me an email or fill out the survey either way. Or if anybody wants to meet and talk about one specific issue, happy to do that. We're trying to, I guess my last comment would be is we're really just trying to walk that line of balancing all the things. It's not, it's so easy to draw really, like, we call them like sexy pictures, right, of new things, but those things come with a lot of negative consequences, or they can if you're not developing in the right way, and for who's asking, who's benefiting, and all of those things. So.
Sasha, based on your understanding of the process right now, when would any of these items begin to work their way through as proposed ordinance changes? Is that even on the horizon? I mean, it's got to be, right?
I think the zoning piece is probably on the shoulders. I'll say that is probably the first thing in my mind in terms of ordinances. This idea around rezoning south to CBD is not as high a priority, and needs some, maybe a little more study. I think it's still, I think, a good idea, but it doesn't feel as urgent, I guess.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for Sasha? There's a lot to digest. All right, go ahead, Ruth.
Yeah, I was extremely impressed with the draft report, and want to thank you for presenting to us. I just had a couple questions. If you're looking at TPDF and you're looking at the South Slope, I'm just curious if you're going to include a Portland Loo within that application, which is really needed on the South Slope. And the other question I have is, do we have any statistics on how many people in Asheville really use bike lanes? Thank you.
Interesting question.
We might table that one for our next.
Yeah, we have
bike lane
transportation on for the next item, so maybe they can speak to that a little.
Yeah, it's a good question. We can pull them into that. They were talking about college and Patton, but that we can ask them that more generally.
And Dana, I would probably look to you about the Portland Loo question. That's something I have not been involved in.
Well, and I would just say regarding the CBD transition on that zone, if we're going to start pushing CBD and removing parking requirements, we really need to start talking about public parking decks in that area. If you're going to make that move, I'm getting in the weeds, but anyway. Any other comments or questions for Sasha regarding this? We'll have more than one bite at this apple. This is a big project. Thank you, Sasha.
One quick thing I would just add is, yeah, hey guys, would appreciate any comments you all have on just like the overall template and format of the document. This is our first in-house plan that we prepared in a number of years, and if this is we want it to be a really easily understandable and easy to read document. So would appreciate, any comments on just the overall template, because what we would like to do in the future is try to replicate this format for other, future neighborhood and small area plans. So appreciate your feedback again.
Very good. Thank you.
I'd say make it so, Todd. I like this. If you can build off this and start looking at other areas of the city, and we don't have to have a entire process of trying to get another firm to come in here and look at this. I mean, I love doing this in-house. I think there's a lot of strengths to that approach. So
thank you all. Appreciate it.
Okay, folks, bear with us. We're going to go over this morning. It's just going to happen. We're gonna fly through these other ones as quickly as we can. Jessica Morris should be on to talk to us about bike lanes on College and Patton. And if you could briefly address Ruth's question, even before you jump into that, on data on the use of bike lanes in general in the city, if there is such, or how you go about measuring that.
Sure. Can you guys hear me? Yeah?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
I don't know if you can see me. I can't see myself. So we do have general data on use of alternative modes, I guess I'll say, through the census. So Census Data has data on how people travel to work. So it's not necessarily broader than just work, but if you're taking the census and you're lucky enough to get to answer those questions, we get data from that says what percentage of people are using a vehicle, transit, walking, biking, working from home, etc. And I wish I had the exact numbers in front of me, but overall, I think the census data from the last decennial census, so not the most recent, indicated that we had somewhere between 1% and 2% bicycle to work travel data, which is relatively low. However, I think it's clear that we're seeing an increase in bicycle activity. And I'm trying to pull up the data that we just got from the Charlotte Street road diet. We just got some final analysis from that looked at before and after activity for the road diet that was put in place in 2019. And we collected data in 2020 and 2021 and have so far seen a pretty significant increase in bicycle activity on Charlotte Street as a result of adding those bike lanes. I think one of the things to keep in mind is that the city has a long way to go when it comes to adding bicycle facilities. We don't have very many, and we certainly don't have a connected network. And the more that we add those facilities and make it more safe, convenient, comfortable for bicyclists of all ages to use them, then we're going to see those numbers go up. Especially with, e-bikes being so much more attainable now, we will see those numbers continue to rise as we move forward. And so, on that note, what we're here to talk to you guys about today is a project that we've been working on for a little while. We've had it in our brains for quite some time. And we are at the point now where we have a design and we are in the public engagement stage of this project. And so we wanted to have an opportunity to bring it to you guys to get your feedback and comments on it as part of that public engagement process. So we have a video that is about 5 minutes long, I think, that serves as a presentation and overview. And so I'm hoping Dana can pull that up and show it, and then we can answer any questions that you guys have.
And we're hoping this sound is going to work, so bear with us. We'll give it a shot.
Welcome to the College and Patton Bike Lanes Project Overview. This is a joint effort between the City of Asheville and Asheville on Bikes. My name is Christy Carter with Traffic Planning and Design, and I'm here to walk you through the project, both how we got to the proposed design and what the design entails.
Before I move on, is the sound okay?
I'm hearing it from on the screen and in your screen.
Yeah. I'll mute, and I think that'll fix it. All right.
Yep.
Now is a good time for this project, and here are a few of the many reasons why. It meets many goals found in adopted city plans. As we have learned from projects like Charlotte Street, we know multimodal projects improve travel for all. During COVID, we learned that we can use our public space differently. Likewise, while the Hotel Arras was under construction, College Street functioned as a one-lane roadway for over a year. Finally, we know that similar projects in other cities have had successful outcomes for people who bike. Before we get into the actual design, let's cover a few of the project basics and parameters. The city gave us direction to minimize conflicts, minimize parking loss, provide maximum bicyclist protection, consider city operations, and minimize construction impacts. We'll cover each of these points in detail. When tasked with designing a bike lane for College and Patton, we had two options. We could either place the bike lane to the left of the vehicle travel lanes, which is a new and different way of bicycling through Asheville, or to the right like the bike lanes we are accustomed to using. The project team conducted a thorough analysis of left and right options. After the analysis, the team determined that the parameters best supported a protected bike lane on the left side of traffic that follows College Street from Spruce Street to the College and Patton intersection at Pritchard Park and along Patton to its intersection with Broadway. A protected bike lane means there is something in place to protect people on bikes from motorized vehicles. Much of our analysis centered on reducing conflicts, so let's review three of the conflict areas we considered. There can be conflict between people who bike through downtown and people who are maneuvering into or out of an on-street parking spot. With the right side bike lane, there are 12 parking spots where maneuvers conflict with the bike lane, and on the left, there are 6 points of conflict. When designing facilities for people on bikes, a concern is the vehicle that enters and exits a driveway where people driving often overlook people on bikes or people walking. There are 6 driveway conflicts on the right side design and 4 on the left. Since one goal of the project is to build a multimodal Asheville, we paid close attention to how a right or left bike lane might conflict with Asheville Rides Transit bus stops. A right side lane creates 5 conflicts with bus stops where the left side has 0 conflicts. This concludes our conflict highlights. Now let's talk about parking and then protection. While a goal is to preserve as much parking as possible, both the right and left options result in a parking spot loss, 4 on the left and 3 on the right. While nobody likes to lose parking, the trade-off for losing a small number of spots is a downtown that is safer for all members of the traveling public. This next point, which side provides the greatest amount of protection for people on bikes, is an important one. Each orange segment drawn on the map represents a section of the bike lane that is protected by vertical delineation, which we'll discuss in a bit, or by paint, or by parking. The left side includes 1,300 feet of protection. The right side provides 650 feet of protection. The left side offers double the amount of protection compared to the right. We have 2 more points to hit before we switch to a detailed look at the corridor. Looking at city operations, barrier-free fire access and trash pickup are important to the life of downtown. Both the right and left scenarios have impacts to fire and trash services. However, we were able to design for these impacts, and you'll see evidence of this when we talk you through the design. A final thing to note, the project had 2 key constraints that influenced design choice. We had to stay within the existing curb lines, meaning no changes to the footprint of the roadway, and we could not make changes to the signal equipment. Because we knew of these constraints from the beginning, we were able to develop workable solutions for the right and left options. On the screen is a summary of each of the points we presented. The left side protected bike lane results in fewer total conflicts, 14 compared to 26. Offers greater protection, remember, it doubles the amount of protection, and either design can work within the operational and construction constraints. Added together, the left side wins. So before we review each block, let's cover two of the tools we propose to use along College and Patton. First are two examples of vertical protection. On the left is an image of a vertical post delineator. These are flexible poles meant to dissuade personal vehicles from entering the bike lane, yet they can be run over in the event of an emergency. On the right are armadillos. These also dissuade cars from entering the bike lane, but their low profile allows emergency vehicles to easily enter or exit the bike lane. Using these tools, we balance bicyclist protection and the need for emergency vehicle access. The second tool is the two-stage turn cue box. We'll call it a cue box for short. While cue boxes are new to Asheville, they are used in many cities and are in nationally accepted design guidebooks. Cue boxes bring many benefits, including improvements for turning bicyclists, space to queue for two-stage turns, bicycle and vehicle conflict reduction, and they keep people on bikes out of sidewalks. We know they look funky and appear confusing, but as with all new things, a little bit of education will go a long way. Through its website, Asheville on Bikes will post educational materials and examples of cue box use in other cities. Let's make our way through each block of the corridor. Our intent is to quickly hit the highlights. A full copy of each section will be available on Asheville on Bikes and the city's websites. We'll cover the College Street sections first. Our first block is Spruce to Market. The main highlight here is the addition of traditional bike lanes in both directions and the elimination of the low-volume left turn lane that exists today. At the end of this block is where people on bikes enter the protected bike lane. The second block is Market to Broadway. Using the cue box, the rider will transition from the right side bike lane on the previous block to the left side protected bike lane. This segment is protected with vertical delineators, has one driveway conflict area, and ends with a bike box at Broadway. Throughout the design, you will notice the hatched green lines which indicate areas of potential conflict. And many blocks like this one end with bike boxes, which are places for people on bikes to place themselves in front of traffic at signalized intersections. The city has successfully used bike boxes on Charlotte Street and the Cox Avenue demonstration project. Block 3 from Broadway to Lexington is another protected section. Features of this section include an improved bus zone, a loading zone that was on the south side of College, and a driveway opening. Additionally, this is where people on bikes can link to a proposed climbing lane on Lexington Avenue. Lexington to Haywood, which is our fourth block, is one of the longer blocks. Highlights include a parking protected bike lane between Lexington and Rankin, which means there's parking in addition to the bike lane buffer between people on bikes and people driving. There is one driveway opening, and the design maintains parking and loading zones. Between Rankin and Haywood, the bike lane remains protected, although with a more narrow buffer width to manage traffic at this intersection. These are the two cross sections for the Lexington-Haywood block. Cross section A is from Lexington to Rankin, and section B is from Rankin to Haywood. Next is the Haywood to Patton block. This block maintains protection, and of note, it was necessary to move the current on-street police parking from College to Haywood to accommodate the bike lane. Now we are on to the Patton Avenue sections. The first block on Patton is protected. From Haywood to Lexington, the bike lane remains protected with vertical delineation until Church Street. After Church, the lane transitions to a lane that includes a painted buffer between the bicycle lane and the on-street parking. This painted buffer protects people on bikes from being hit by opening car doors, which is known as dooring. Before approaching the intersection, people on bikes will travel through a left turn conflict zone where they will travel between the left turn lane and the lane for through traffic and right turns. From here, people on bikes will travel through the intersection to re-enter the left side bike lane. In Block 8, our final block, people on bikes will travel through a short section that is unprotected and unbuffered before entering the last section that is protected. After the bike box at Broadway, people on bikes will transition to the network that is in place today. Throughout the public engagement and design refinement process, the City of Asheville and Asheville on Bikes will be updating their College and Patton Bike Lanes project pages to keep stakeholders informed. Please be sure to check back for next steps, project updates, and educational materials. We thank you for listening and reach out to us with questions.
Wow, it's the day of
Okay.
great job.
So thank you, Sage. So one thing that doesn't really go into a whole lot of detail in the presentation, but that is definitely a big part of our analysis and our look at this is loading. So we all know that we've got some issues downtown with loading and loading zones and double parking. And I would say so far in the internal conversations that we've had with other staff members and departments, that's been the key issue that continues to come up. And so, you know, one of the things that I think we'll look at after we get through the public engagement process is if there are opportunities to potentially incorporate some more loading zones, because obviously this project would have an further impact on that in terms of there being, you know, having somebody double park after this project is implemented would definitely be a greater impact than it is even now. So I just wanted to say that out front, that loading zones are definitely something that we need to take particular care in looking at. And that's just in general overall, but yeah, is a big concern we've heard so far. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know that there's a lot of detail that's sort of embedded in this, and it's not super easy to see in the presentation, but in your agenda packet is the link to the PDF of the design, and so you can zoom in on that and look at particular blocks. And we also have some upcoming public engagement opportunities. We have 2 walking tours scheduled, and those will be next week. There's going to be one on Thursday and one on Saturday. And then we will have a virtual presentation opportunity to, you know, where we'll show basically this video again and then answer more questions if necessary. And that's going to be open to the public. And I think that's scheduled for the 21st. And then again, we'll be presenting this information to the Multimodal Commission at their meeting on the 23rd. I see lots of hands raised. So somebody go.
I'll go ahead and go because
Stephen Lee.
So Jessica and Mike, the presentation like answered every question I had. It's so thorough and well thought out, and I know that's what it's going to take to make this happen. My comment about the loading zone is I actually think it's going to, at least for the business loading zones for like a car, it's going to help because they're so abused right now. They get parked, especially on the weekends. And I think the additional striping that's in that is going to help, in addition to improving safety. And I know that a lot of people that live in my building are really excited about this plan. Initially, we were like, this is just, you know, doesn't make sense. We're going to lose all of our parking. But when you really look at this, it's really exciting. My only question is, does it have an impact on the parking spaces that will be available? Will they still have a meter on the sidewalk? They
Yes.
just, okay, it is. Okay. Thank you a lot. That's all I have.
Yes.
I think Gio is next.
My practical side kind of comes out. I love the plan. I think it's very well thought out, and thank you for Mike Soleil and Asheville on Bikes, amazing group. My question is about enforcement, because there in the evening it seems like even parking enforcement just kind of goes away. People park everywhere. How are we going to be able to, or has thought been given to how we enforce these special lanes and special use areas so that they are free and clear well into the evening, where we want our people, especially the city, to come into town and use these, use this area safely without being encumbered by people just parking everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good question, and I wish I had a silver bullet answer. I can tell you that, as far as enforcement within my department's parking division, we, just like Pete Wall was talking about, we've got existing staffing issues that make that problematic, as well as the fact that our parking enforcement right now only goes till 6 p.m. And we don't even enforce on Sundays. So that's an area of concern that I have as a assistant director. And, we do need more resources for parking enforcement. I think that the delineators that we're proposing to use, one of the purposes of that is to try to emphasize that this is not an area for parking. And our striping and our signage will attempt to reinforce that. In the event that there is someone parking in the bicycle lane, then of course that would become an enforcement activity, which would either be done by my group in transportation or by APD. But it is something that could happen. Hopefully our design with our delineators and signage will reinforce that area is not for parking.
Yeah, and if I could just hop in real quick, it's one of the lessons that we learned from Cox Avenue in our tactical urbanism project. And, there had been some parking encroachment issues. And one of the things that the city has done to sort of shore up the Cox Avenue is they actually added those vertical delineators that resolve some of those issues. So like with each one of the temporary projects, we're learning a little bit more about how to, properly delineate, because ultimately it's a design solution, not an enforcement solution. I mean, obviously there's going to be some enforcement here and there, but we really want to design the facilities that work, and we're moving that way.
Wonderful. And now that I know those things are called armadillos, I'm going to go put eye stickers on all of them. Anybody else got anything? That was a really good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. And if any of you are interested in attending the virtual workshop or the walking tours, you can go to our public input page and register to attend. The only purpose of the registration is just so we can make sure that we get everybody the invitation to the location and be able to further communicate with them as this project moves forward. So next week we'll be walking tours, and then the following week we'll have our virtual presentation. So thank you guys for your time. I greatly appreciate it.
Anna, you had something real quick.
Yeah, I'm working with Jessica on this project and Mike as well, and want to clarify that the virtual presentation will be on Thursday, March 24th, and we have opportunities in the morning and the evening. Right now, we're still working to get the registration links set up on the project page for those. So if you're interested in attending that and you don't see that today, hopefully we'll have those registration links worked out by early next week. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. We've got two more
Andrew?
hands raised. Andrew.
This looks great. I know I was briefed on this a little while ago, and been really excited to, been waiting for it to see it come forward. I'm hoping that this plan looks great. You've answered, I think, a lot of the questions that need to be answered. And my question is, I hope you get lots of green lights on this going forward. And if so, if all the lights turn green for you, how soon do we get to see this?
Sorry, I meant to mention that. So what our plan is right now is to finish the public engagement within the next, I'll say, month or so, maybe less. And then our next step is to put together the bid documents, essentially. So ultimately, what we're hoping is we'll see this installed this summer.
Very good. Kimberly?
Thanks. I think this was a fantastic presentation. My question is, isn't for conflict, but it's just actually to expand the thinking. Bike lanes also can be very useful for people with motorized wheelchairs. And I know we're talking a lot about people with specific abilities when we're talking about bikes, but there are other types of vehicles with wheels that are not cars that actually could really use the benefit of this project. So my question is, where is that in this? Because we'll just be talking about this in another form or fashion, 2, 3, 5 years from now, when we have many more motorized wheelchairs and such on the sidewalks. So can anyone speak to that? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. So, we call this a bicycle lane project, but really the intent is for it to be for any kind of what I'll call micro mobility device. And I would include folks with disabilities and wheelchairs in that category of being able to use this facility. So, I foresee in the future, even though right now we're technically not allowed to have e-scooters and things of that nature, I think inevitably we will see that continue to grow. And so these lanes and any other bicycle facility that we have in the city, I foresee being able to utilize these lanes as well. So yeah, although that's not directly addressed in the presentation, that is our intention.
Can I just hop in on that and echo that? Just from the Asheville on Bikes perspective, I really appreciate you raising that point. And if you go to ashevilleonbikes.com and you look up this project, we have actually categorized it as bike plus lanes. Kim, right to your point, thinking about micro mobility and welcoming. And one of the reasons that we, Asheville on Bikes, talked about it as bike plus lanes is we want to prime the pump in the cycling community to be thinking about all types of light mobility and not be creating lanes that we're like, no, these are the bike lanes. No, these are the light mobility lanes, and it's the transportation network of our future. So you can count on Asheville on Bikes to be communicating that and pushing that message forward. This is about mobility.
Yeah, and so if you know me, you know that I'm hyper passionate about this issue. So if there's any way that I can support what that could look like, I'm happy to jump in. I don't have a ton of extra time right now in my life, but I feel like we would be taking about 20 years step backwards if this was implemented without the proper attention to multimobility. And even if it's set with a certain speed, so that it gets real clear that any micromodal vehicle or whatever you're using is up to a certain speed and has a certain number of things. I just want to make sure it's accessible more for bikes, because then we get into this territorial and hierarchical issue that continues to remain around ability versus different abilities. So I'm passionate about this. I'm sorry I didn't jump in earlier, but in terms of maybe a year ago or so. But if you need my insight or want it, get a hold of me.
I absolutely do, and I'll ask you to scan, what the copy that exists on Asheville on Bikes page about it, and give me a critique of it. I do want to specifically say too that we're also limited by what mobility devices are currently legal and not legal to use in the city of Asheville. So to your point again, Asheville on Bikes is sort of nudging things into the future.
Very good. Andrew, go ahead. Then we need to move on.
And to Mike's point, that's exactly what I was going to bring up, because skateboarding is not legal downtown. And this would be an infrastructure that would seem to really make sense for that. So if there's an opportunity for your advocacy to include skateboarding, and honestly, it was about, I think, 8 or 9 years ago, before my time on Downtown Commission, we almost got a 4 wheels down skateboard rule passed, and it failed council 4-3. And so I feel like there's an opportunity to revisit that if we're to do we got skate shops downtown, and literally you can't skate to them. And I'm not a skateboarder. I grew up on grass, not concrete. So that's not my thing, but it's definitely, I think, an opportunity for us to get people around downtown in other ways that we currently can't do. So I would invite you to advocate for more wheeled transportation in that way too.
Awesome. Thank y'all so much for your time this morning. Commission members, if you can hold with us for about 5-10 more minutes, we're going to try to fly through the remaining items, and we'll move on. Next item is DRC update to rules of procedure, and this is essentially a small update to the rule of procedure to comply with a recent council vote to go along with the makeup of the design review committee. And then really that's it. Do we need to describe it any more than that? So we were doing, what was it, four from Downtown Commission, 4 from River Arts, and 1 at large, and now we're going to do, or something like that. Now we're going to do 3, and 3, correct? 3 from DRC Downtown, 3 from River Arts, and 3 at large. So, and that's just, so we just have a proposed well, there is a ordinance, and we need to, I guess, update our rules of procedure accordingly.
Yep, just that small tweak. So we just changed 4 to 3. Just want to go through the process to get that approved. And thanks to Kimmy for volunteering to switch over from the one of the Downtown Commission reps to an at-large rep. Needed to make that shift as well.
So do we need a motion?
Yes.
I move to accept the changes to the rules of procedure for the Downtown Commission.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Robin.
Awesome. Very good. We'll go through a roll call vote. Andrew.
Aye.
Tal. Is he still on?
He jumped off.
Okay. Thank you. Kimberly.
Aye.
Stephen Lee.
Aye.
I am an aye. Robin.
Aye.
Gio. Gio, are you there?
He's muted.
Yeah, he said aye. Yeah.
He did. 3 times he did.
Okay. Ricardo. Throw something at him, Robin.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, Ruth.
Aye.
And Sage jumped off too, right? Okay, awesome. It passes. Very good. And we will continue to fly through. Thank you, folks, for hanging on. Design Review Committee update report. Stephen Lee, who have we offended this week?
Very simple, but brief. Star Building that y'all saw before was approved, and the Avery project you're probably all aware of that's been approved came back following approval from planning and zoning, just to review some specifics. There was a lot of discussion about the 72 Broadway building that the commission has seen. A lot of headway was made in working with the architects to explore and address some of the concerns. I think they're coming back again for an informal review. Sasha, I don't know if it's this coming month.
I believe that's right. There's 3 informal reviews next week.
Okay.
Yeah, they're
But
coming back.
a lot was suggested to them, and if there are other DRC members that are here that want to comment on that, but those are the 3 projects that were reviewed.
Very good. Thank you. Megan will give us a update on the Asheville Downtown Association when she gets back. And I don't know if, Robin, if you've had a chance to attend anything on the homeless initiative.
I've got some notes on some meetings and agendas if you want me to go through them really quickly.
Yeah,
it may
go
be
ahead,
too
please.
much. So at the end of this, if it's too much, say do less. So, okay. So these are the summaries from the meeting minutes from the February meetings. We'll report on the March's meetings in April. On February 15th, the Homeless Initiative Advisory Committee distribution list posted a request for proposals for a homeless services consultant to develop an actionable plan to address unsheltered homelessness. The RFP for that is due March 4th. On February 8th, Senator Tillis's office announced an RFP for the Inspire Initiative, and that would be investments in supporting partnerships in recovery ecosystems. The grant addresses the region's substance use disorder crisis and would invest money into helping facilitate people re-enter the workforce and stay in the workforce. Applications for that are due on March 24th. The Homeless Coalition had a meeting March 8th. The county is returning to the behavioral health 24/7 model. They noted that people with pets have a harder time finding shelter. The leadership Asheville team is working on solutions to that, and we'll have a guide. March 31st, the Ramada Inn is going to close. 7 people recently exited to housing. 20 have vouchers, but there's no housing for them yet. The mayor had a slide presentation showing the point in time count of homelessness for 2021. There were 527 people counted in 2021, and 2022 has not completed their count, has completed the count in January, but they have not announced the totals yet. And that's expected to be published mid to late March. They're expecting a rise in unsheltered people for 2022. Asheville recently funded an outreach position at Homeward Bound to engage homeless population, connect to services, and work with businesses and community to address challenges. They coordinated and funded the Code Purple Shelter and Winter Shelter with the county, and I've received multiple announcements for that that's happened over the past month. They are trying to pursue a high access shelter. The sheltered people during COVID, 158 people were sheltered at the Red Roof Inn, 48 exited to permanent housing. Ramada Inn, there were 116 people from 3 encampments and 25 people exited to permanent housing. The Buncombe County Affordable Housing Committee met on March 1st. They had a homelessness goal setting by Matthew Cable. He talked about that. The committee asked for additional information regarding the Ramada Inn project, and the committee expressed support for the goal to be phrased as Buncombe County will support activities that achieve functional zero homelessness. No action was taken by the committee. AHAC met March 3rd, and they had nothing specifically about homelessness. However, it was interesting. There are no houses available in the city of Asheville under $250,000. The Public Safety Committee met February 25th. Chief David Zach discussed strategic operating procedure revisions to the Section 3020, and that's persons experiencing homelessness. And the March meeting will contain a report on crime data by Nicholas Pearson. And the report has already been pre-submitted, and it's an interesting report to look over if you want to do so. The Housing and Community Development Committee met on February 15th, and they didn't have any specific homelessness discussions. So that.
Great, thank you, Robin. Yeah, the 250 thing, I'm still nuts. Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Robin, for all that work. This is something that's really important, I think, to our city and to a lot of individuals that are experiencing these conditions. I'm wondering, are we in these discussions? Are we talking about, you know, one of the legs of housing is keeping people housed? So people who is there any talk about a program that can try to, you know, people who are at risk of losing their housing? You know, is there any talk of having a program that tries to intervene at that point before the problems start to snowball when you get people that are unsheltered and so many? I think the conditions are much easier to deal with before people lose housing than after. So any talk of that?
I didn't hear anything specific to that, and I agree with you 100%. I was focusing more on the homelessness points of the agenda, but I do think that that I know that groups like Homeward Bound and people like that, once they get people, that is a main focus for them. But I don't know of any specific program.
The other thing I would ask is I'd love to see that the crime analysis from Nick Pearson. I think I know what you're talking about. If there's a fuller report, I would love to get connected with that. And I will say that just the crime data around homelessness that was presented to council back in January, I thought was very unfortunate and damaging to the dialogue. The data was incredibly sloppy. If you look at, for instance, this hasn't been really well covered, but if I got under the hood of that data, and if you looked, if a homeless encampment existed for 1 day, 2 days, or 2 weeks, the crime data that was used was 52 weeks of data. So as far as it might have been data, but it sure wasn't information. And so I would just, if anybody's trying to look at that and try to make policy out of it, please think twice. That data that was presented to council was a hot mess, and I thought unhelpful and possibly even damaging to efforts. So
that's basically what the pre-submitted report covered, the faults in the data from the Asheville police. I'm going to stick that presentation in the chat right now.
Thank you. Ruth, go ahead.
Yeah, I just, Andrew, to answer your question, I know Pisgah Legal Services has been working with a number of individuals to help them stay in their apartments. Some people that have gotten behind in rent, and I know that they have been working diligently to make sure those people don't end up on the street. And also Dogwood Health Trust is working hand in hand to basically build and find housing for populations that are not housed. So there are a lot of people working on this issue.
Right. That's awesome to hear. Whatever efforts we have in that direction, I'd love to see more, because I think it's not just even socially responsible to help people, you know, to intervene as early as possible. I think it's fiscally responsible to the city. I think it's a better use of taxpayer dollars to try to help people at that point, rather than waiting until those problems just magnify and amplify.
Awesome. Dana, how quickly can we do the update report, folks? I think we'll be able to wrap up about 11:30.
Very quickly, but I'm still going to pull it up.
Awesome.
Okay. And thank you for all of that, Robin. And I'll just note, we have Emily Ball coming to the next Downtown Commission meeting. So I'm sure she can answer, Andrew, that first question you had and any other questions about related to homelessness and the city's efforts. So Pack Square Plaza improvements, we talked about that. Pete provided some updates. South Slope Vision Plan, we talked a lot about that. Bike lanes, just making sure you guys have all the links to more information. This is one I am going to start talking more and more about, getting it on the radar. stormwater improvements planned for Carter Street, Ann Street, and Patton Avenue. That work, we've been working on the design plans for the past 1.5 to 2 years. That construction is expected to begin later this spring or early summer, and it is going to be fairly impactful. So there's going to be some street closures of South Ann and of Carter Street, and there's going to be some lane reductions of Patton, which we plan to have those during the nighttime hours. But it's a great project. That area is very much in need of these stormwater improvements, and we're going to be making some improvements to the sidewalk to improve accessibility. So the pretty sure the whole section of sidewalk between South Ann and South French Broad is going to be replaced. So impacts, but also good news, and we'll continue to keep you guys informed. We'll probably build a contact list similar to what we did with the Haywood Streetscape project, so we can keep you guys informed of all the details of construction and impact. Advisory board restructure proposal. So there have been a few workshops held. One was held at the same time as our meeting today, but they're continuing to keep that project page up to date. So I've provided a link there. And I'm sure we'll hear more soon after they compile all of the input that's been heard through these workshops. Development project updates. I think all of these were already discussed. 363 Hilliard was approved by council at their meeting on Tuesday. And other city council meetings, just to flag, they had their first budget work session of the year in February, and that recording is available. It really focuses on the city's capital project process. And so that's interesting if you would like to learn more. And a special work session was also held earlier this week to discuss the open space standards. And City Council is going to hold their annual retreat on March 17th and 18th, and that will be live streamed. ARPA funds are scheduled to be voted on by City Council at their April 12th meeting. And as you're probably all aware by now, the indoor face covering requirement expired on February 16th. So that's no longer mandated indoors, although it is encouraged by Buncombe County Health and Human Services. In terms of meeting in person, City Council has been meeting in person. We're not set up to do hybrid meetings for our boards and commissions at this time. So I do think we're going to work towards transitioning some of our quasi-judicial boards first in the next month or two, and then look at having those capabilities for our other boards. But for the time being, we are still going to be virtual.
Very good. As Dana mentioned, next month, our April meeting, we will have Emily Ball come and talk about the homeless response shelter and updates there. And then we will also have and I can't remember now who's doing it, just left my mind, a discussion on light pollution awareness, basically how standards affect light pollution and bird migration. So any other items that we need to cover? Everybody's ready to go. Great discussion. Thanks for your attention. I move we adjourn. All in favor? Say goodbye. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Great day.